This home buyer story was so detailed with so many issues that I had to actually break it up into two parts. So here we go. The buyer that got ghosted, buying new construction, and apparently had an awesome rate because of points that she didn't know about. Enjoy.
Welcome to season 2 of the Real Estate Replay. This season, we're opening up the co-host chair to agents, lenders, and other professionals across the country. These handpicked co-hosts will help us dissect stories told by sellers and buyers and help point out the good, the bad, the unethical, or perhaps illegal things that they experienced. We'll learn what to look for, what to avoid, and how to not get screwed when selling or buying.
All right, here we go. This one is titled, My Experience with a Production Builder and a Shady Real Estate Agent. The buyer went on to say they wanted to purchase a home and received a recommendation for a real estate agent from their friend. Trusting their recommendation, she didn't date quote unquote other agents and spoke with the referred agent. We'll call her Melissa. In our first conversation, I explained to Melissa what I wanted in a house, and I also said I was a first-time home buyer and totally unsure of how I should get started. I asked her if I should start shopping around for loans to understand what I qualified for and to start getting rates. Melissa told me that wasn't necessary and she'd get back to me shortly. Red flag. Not long after, Melissa called me, but this time had another person on the line. She introduced me to someone that I'll call Becca. Becca was a seller agent for a national home construction company that builds new construction homes. I didn't even know this phone call was going to be happening. And apparently, Melissa had already briefed Becca about all the things I wanted in a home. Within an hour, Becca emailed me several floor plans at exceptional prices. A few days later, Becca met with me to tour the model homes. My agent, Melissa, was not present and did not offer to attend. I thought homes of this supposed quality were forever out of my reach. I was encouraged to speak to the builder's loan office, in which the estimate made me feel like this home was completely in my monthly budget. A few days later, Becca sent me a purchase agreement, and I wasn't a complete idiot. I wanted to talk about it before I signed. So I took all my questions I had and called Melissa. And instead of answering any questions for me privately, she called Becca and looped her in on our phone call. I found it odd because I anticipated some level of strategizing and negotiations based on home buying experiences of people I knew. That's when I started to realize that Becca was answering all the questions and my agent wasn't really helping me. I also realized that Becca has absolutely no obligation to represent my best interest or to even disclose facts that are not favorable to the builder. My agent said nothing on the phone, but I assumed that maybe her silence was that she was agreeing with what Becca said, and I was fine. After I signed that purchase agreement, I never spoke with her again. That's when I decided to start looking some stuff up about the builder and realized that they had horrible reviews. I decided on my own to have the house inspected before it was complete, and it turned out that there were some things wrong with the house. I promptly emailed Melissa, my agent, who wasn't responding or doing anything at this point, to ask her some questions and highlighting what was wrong and asked what I should do. And she didn't respond. And it all just got worse when I got my closing disclosures. I was incentivized to work with the builder's lender because they were giving me seller credits. So when I met with their loan officer, I was super excited that they gave me a really low rate. Yet when I got the closing disclosure, it jumped up 15% compared to the original loan estimate that he gave me. And while he gave me a million reasons and excuses as to why it went up 15%, what I also noticed is that that low rate that he gave me was used with me buying mortgage points, which wasn't explained to me. Had it been explained to me, I would have been more encouraged to shop around and look for rates because I had an excellent credit score. Not to mention all those seller incentives that were promised to me ended up being less than half of what was advertised. So to sum it up, she got referred to an agent. The agent essentially ghosted her the minute that she signed a contract with the builder. And on top of that, she used the builder's lender, who in turn gave her a low rate based on buying points and didn't explain that to her. Not to mention, increased her closing costs by 15%. And did I mention that Melissa, her agent, is getting 4% commission on the sale? Let's talk about where it all went wrong and what you can do to avoid this. The first expert I have on to dissect this story is David Tasic. I've known David for a few years, and we recently worked together on an article in the Post-Gazette that some people didn't like because it talked about
Really? Who didn't
yeah.
like it?
No, a couple people didn't like it. It talked about the options of buyer rebates, the flexibility of agents, and the negative impact of best agent platforms and all that stuff. But I know that you have had a ton of new construction clients, so I figured you're the perfect person to dissect this story with me. But I obviously glossed over all of your qualifications. So if you could quickly give a little bit on your background.
Sure. So I was a real estate attorney for a firm downtown for about 8 years, and then I started Insight Realty, a real estate brokerage, as kind of a side gig, and it allowed me to kind of go be self-employed at that point. So I went on my own, and I've been doing Insight Realty, offering buyer rebates and reduced commission for sellers since 2014. And I continue with my law practice and have a closing company as well, Partners Closing Services. And I'm from Pittsburgh, originally Wilkinsburg, went to Pitt and Pitt for law school.
So off the bat, why would an agent tell someone to not worry about meeting with a lender? It sounds like she told her that before they even talked about new builds, because then she called her back and had a three-way phone call with a new build rep, and the buyer didn't know that was going to happen. So she kind of just like introduced. So before she even knew she was going to buy a new build or go that route, this agent told her, no, don't worry about meeting with a lender, because she's like, I have no clue like what I can afford. It just seems like a really bad advice to give someone who's not sure where they stand financially before you hit the market.
Yeah, I mean, new construction is usually something that people know that they want to do. They're usually saying, I want new construction. I don't want houses that are 10, 20 years. But if this buyer, from what I read, yeah, it seemed like that agent really steered them in that direction of, just adding the builder on the line with them and then going from there.
Right. And so this agent, according to this buyer, essentially like ghosted her client after the process started, and stopped responding to her emails, but was standing to collect 4% commission from the sale.
Wow.
So yeah, 4%. So it was like, oh, I think it was supposed to be 2, and it was some kind of doubled. I don't know. And she didn't know that until she got closer to the closing table. She found out how much the agent was getting. So when it comes to new builds, and using an agent only for that purpose, right? So I understand it's one thing if you have an agent that's shown you like 20 homes and you decide to build new, but if you're bringing on an agent specifically to walk you through a new build, I think it's incredibly fair to have conversations about buyer rebates, if legal in your state, which it's legal in 41, I believe at this point, right? Louisiana just converted, I think. So there's like 9 states left that don't do it.
It's definitely legal in Pennsylvania.
Right.
There's a few states that don't have it, but PA is not one.
Right. So can you explain what a rebate is and how you apply it to your clients with new construction?
So very simply, a rebate is where the agent gives the buyer part of their commission as a credit at closing. It reduces the buyer's closing costs, just like a seller's assist credit. And it's kind of like the agent sets the amount that they're going to get. And then the other amount is just rebated to the client. That's it.
Why is it such a taboo subject? When I talk about buyer rebates online, I get destroyed by agents who say, well, are you going to give up your commission? Like it's very one-sided or the other, instead of looking at it as a case-by-case basis. Like, why is it such a taboo subject, especially when we look at affordability issues in real estate?
It's just traditionally how real estate has come to be. I mean, the buyer's agent usually accepts the compensation offered by it's not the seller, it's usually the seller's agent technically. And they it's out in the open. Everyone knows what the agent's fees are. It is a little bizarre when you compare this to the lending world, where you have different, mortgage brokers can set their compensation. They can have 1% per loan, 2% per loan. If an agent says, I only need to make 1.5%, That's basically the same thing. And if the seller is paying 2.5 and then they rebate 1% to the buyer,
Right.
um, it makes sense. But a lot of agents, either their companies won't allow it, they don't want to go down that road. They think it's a slippery slope, or they can't because they have, there's layers of franchises, fee splits, and internal costs that they just, at the end of the day, they're not making that whole commission.
Right. Right. And I should mention the importance of, if you're doing a new build and you use an agent, you need to have your agent with you like from the beginning, right? It's harder to,
Well,
I
right.
mean,
You
from
have
a payment standpoint, right?
there's the principle of procuring cause. So, the builder wants that agent to basically to bring them the buyer, or at least be involved at the start. If, some people try to add on an agent well into the process, and the builder's going to say, why? This agent really didn't do anything. So yeah, if you are looking for, at least with my company, a rebate, I have to be involved in the process from the start with the builder.
Okay. So let's talk about what should you expect from your agent during the new build process. So, and I understand what happened to this buyer because I was a new build client, and you kind of get so overwhelmed, and everybody's so nice to you, and I think you kind of just assume that everybody's got your best interest in mind. But eventually, like, you see the price tag and maybe reality starts to set in a little bit. But our agent was around in the beginning. And then when it kind of came time to picking stuff and getting through certain pieces, we never heard from her until the contract time, which is how I somehow have 13 can lights in my tiny kitchen, that I still don't understand how somebody should have said, hey, you don't need that many lights. But if it's $300 each to upgrade in your house, I can see how that happens. But anyway, so from your perspective, like, what should you expect from your agent during the new build process?
Well, it's really, each new build is a little different. Now, some of the builders consider it a referral agreement instead of a buyer agency agreement. So they actually say, like, I know NVR, Ryan Homes, Heartland Homes, they're one of them that they call it a referral fee. And sometimes their fee to the agent is quite low. In this area, I think it's either 2,000 or 3,000. Doesn't matter the price of the property.
Oh, okay.
And so, for the agent to then, a referral is supposed to be, I refer my client to you. Client is now yours, basically.
Right.
So if that's the understanding, and I was wondering maybe when I was reading that description, if that's what that agent thought happened there, and that's why they quote ghosted their client. It seems like there's definitely a lack of communication there, though. It's really, I've had clients build, and it's really the salesperson. Some of them are very, very knowledgeable. They know all the ins and outs in the products. They're the one to talk to about what kind of knobs do we put, what kind of can lights do we put. A lot of it's personal preference. So it's really, I think it's difficult for the agent that, might have totally different personal preferences to
Right.
then go and tell, okay, you need X in your kitchen, or you
Right.
don't
Right.
want, I mean, if they ask, the agent should be able to provide some input, like, oh, that color, it's not neutral,
Right.
but um but that part of the process, I feel, is best handled between a knowledgeable builder salesperson and the client. But the agent can still play a part. If there's questions and you feel like, I need an independent check on this person's telling me this, is that normal? You should be able to ask your agent. And there's some things in those agreements that aren't typical for transactions in Pennsylvania that are there all the time.
Oh, really? What do you mean? Contract
Well,
wise?
like, yeah, contract wise, like, it's fairly traditional for the buyer and seller to split the transfer tax 50-50 for existing homes. But
Okay.
for some new construction, the builder, NVR is one of them, it's their company policy. They'll make the buyer pay 100% of the transfer tax,
Oh, okay.
which is just their policy.
Yeah.
They probably do that in other states too, but it's one difference that, if you're buying a house down the street, 5-year-old house, they're going to pay half. Everyone else is paying half, but and there might be reasons why they set it up that way. and it goes to, there's other lender incentives. If you use the lender, you'll get this credit by using their lender, but it's a seller credit. And it's usually the in-house lender that does that. And I mean, this is legal, but it makes it very difficult for other mortgage people to compete
Right.
For that new construction.
Why is it legal for new construction, but not for general mortgages?
Well, it's because the seller and the lender are the same, under the same company, and
Okay.
the incentive is coming from the seller. Under RESPA section, I think it's section 8, you basically can't pay for a referral fee. So if an agent has a relationship with a lender, they can't say, give me some feedback for,
Right. But
but
they can pay their ads and rent some office space. There's some loopholes. Some
there's
people
a
are
way to,
paying the Zillow
there's
ad for some.
marketing agreements. Yeah, that's there is a way to thread that needle, but with the builders, it's essentially the seller giving a credit for using the seller's lender, which is in-house.
Right.
And there's no prohibition on that.
Right.
The funny thing is that credit ends up being kind of equal to the transfer tax. So it's kind of like a normal transaction, but they want to capture all the business that they can.
Right.
RESPA, and then RESPA has certain limitations for closing companies. RESPA Section 9 prevents them from telling you have to use a certain closing company, but it's not. They never force people to use the lender, but they're allowed to incentivize, which sometimes is not always. I've had clients that go to other lenders that are better.
Yeah. How do they pad in their incentives elsewhere? Like I know I had talked to a lender about, in this scenario, she didn't realize that they had used points to get her loan down because nobody really walked her through it until she really sat down and looked at the papers and realized, her rate, she's buying her rate versus if she would have shopped around a little bit. So how do they offset some of these fees? Are there things we should be looking for in an estimate to see?
I think no matter what lender you're going with, whether it's new construction or you're buying an existing home, you need to look at points, because rate alone is irrelevant. Like you can get a low rate, but what about the points? Unless you have the full picture, you can't tell if this loan is comparable to another loan. And so that's why the requirement under RESPA is for a loan estimate to be sent out within 3 business days of the lender getting the information. And so you can compare apples to apples with, fees and, origination fee, and look at points. Points is, you can pay 2 points and get a low rate. Someone else might have a slightly higher rate with no points.
Right.
So, but yeah, unfortunately that buyer, she should have had it explained to her. Here's your loan estimate. Take a look at this, and has your points and everything else. But apparently it didn't happen.
Right. There's a lot of pages too. Sometimes I think, I feel like you're kind of overwhelmed to a degree. And I'm not making excuses, but I think that you don't know what you don't know.
It's like drinking from a fire hose, right? And it's kind of like you get so many disclosures that who has time to really go through all of this? They try to make it easy. Now, the loan estimate, I will say it's a binding document. Even though it's an estimate, some of those things, the fees on there, like transfer tax, can't be changed later.
Oh, okay.
So I once saw a lender that didn't know that NVR had that transfer tax, that the buyer paid all the transfer tax. And so they just thought it was a normal 50-50. And they got it wrong on their loan estimate. So they had to eat that extra cost at closing. So it's a powerful document, the loan estimate. I feel like people don't really know what to do with it or what it is.
Right. It just kind of seems like a piece of paper to a degree until you sign stuff. Okay. I need to talk about pricing too, because when we built, this caught me off guard. And so, the buyer talked about touring the model home with all the bells and whistles. And I think it's really important to explain how they advertise their pricing, because we fell for this. So we looked at building a home and we really liked this specific model. And in their ads, they put it as starting at 320 or whatever it could be. But then you get the pamphlet and you see that this model, I think ours was like the Virginia model, has like 7 different elevations. And so the starting at price was like 320. But the picture and everything that was shown to you is like elevation F, which is like $75,000 more than kind of what you assumed was coming with the house. And so I think it's important when people are shopping online. I don't know if you see people get sticker shock a lot, but for us, I didn't realize that there are the basics, bare bones when it comes to building a model, and then the pricing structure doesn't always match the picture that's typically shown to you sometimes when you're being advertised. Do you see a lot of people get sticker shock with that, or the add-ons and the upgrades and the?
I do. I've heard that from a number of people that, oh, I didn't expect all these extras to cost. I thought it came with this, or this is extra. A lot of stuff is extra. You do see some homes that just have a lot of the basics, but if you want, different carpeting, different flooring, that's an important conversation to have. And unfortunately, a lot of times the situation is like, oh, we only have 2-3 lots left, so you have to act now. Which fortunately, a lot of the builders, I know, NVR is one, you can like put a deposit down. Infinity, I know, is another one locally. You can put a deposit down, and then you have some time to like think about things and talk to.
Right.
But I think at the end of the day, if you're not comfortable with the people, the sales people, the process, you don't understand everything. I mean, I don't think you should really,
Right.
because you can get, overwhelmed and a lot of surprise. Last thing you want in real estate transaction is surprise.
Right.
So
and more stuff to pay for. Yeah. I think what surprised me the most was the exterior, what came with the home on the beginning price versus like the picture, because the basic was like aluminum siding, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But the picture was like hardy plank and stone. And I'm like, where is that? Like this, it was just, and I don't want to say it's a bait and switch, but I feel like you just need to be prepared to know that the model home is not the base price whatsoever.
Well, yeah. And as a lawyer, I mean, the contract is what matters, right?
Right.
So in the contract, it's going to say something like, all of our marketing material, you can forget all of it. The only thing that matters is what's in this contract. So a lot of that is marketing. And, the model home, I'm sure it has all the bells and whistles and the brochures, but what matters is obviously what's in the 4 corners of your sales agreement and your document.
Right. Okay. What about inspections? So I don't know if the agent told the buyer to get an inspection or if it came up in the contract. But she got one and didn't get a response from her agent on like what to do. So from your perspective, getting an inspection on a new build before you close, yes or no?
I think it's a yes. I think it's a really good idea. And even before the drywall goes up,
Yeah.
because a lot of times the drywall goes up, you can't really inspect if there was some kind of problem in the foundation, if it wasn't, some other problem not built according to specs. And unfortunately, you'd have to probably get a structural engineer involved. Most home inspectors probably wouldn't be able to go into a site, and although some might.
Right.
But yeah, definitely at the very minimum, I would get an inspection, because that punch list that you create and that discussion, you lose all your leverage as a buyer once you close.
Right.
So you close, they have all their money. Even if it's a where you close on the land, there's 2 ways to do new construction. You can close on the land first and then get a construction loan, or you can get an end loan and then just buy the house after it's totally built.
Okay.
But either way, you should get an inspection, and that's key. I mean,
Yeah. I remember because there are agents that I have read have told their clients, don't worry, you have a 1-year walkthrough or something in a year. So if there's anything wrong, they'll take care of it then. And I'm like, no, that's I have had to deal with a warranty department before, and it is the worst process. Like we were phase 1, and there were 2 phases in our neighborhood. And I'm so thankful we were phase 1, because we would catch stuff and our project manager was still around. So all of us would just go outside and like flag him down because they still had,
pitchforks and
yeah, they still had people there and he didn't want to deal with us. So he would go fix it. But like the minute they packed up shop and you deal with the warranty company, it is like pulling teeth to like get yourself heard. See, and then there's all these like little loopholes on if it's covered or if it's not. And it's just the more I feel like you can check off your list and make sure your home is well done, like it just seems like it's a no-brainer to do these inspections.
Yeah, that final walkthrough is really important. Like I said, leverage before you close. You know, they want to keep you happy, very happy, right before you close, and obviously afterwards. But they don't have quite the same incentive. The warranties you want to watch. I'd say exactly how you're supposed to make a claim under the warranties. A lot of them say maybe send certified mail. There might be a whole section on like how you're supposed to procedurally make a claim under those, and there's time frames for everything. 1 year for certain things and a lot of exclusions. So
okay, so in this buyer's story, she seems to kind of like wake up to realizing that no one's really advising her or helping her. In your opinion, like, is it too late for her? I believe she only put a deposit down. To my understanding, she put a deposit down. I'm not sure. I guess there's probably a lot of things we don't know. But like at what point can you change your mind when building?
I think for that person, it's going to depend on the contract, and they're probably going to want to meet with an attorney in their state to review and see if there's any way to wiggle out or they have any outs under the contract. Sometimes there are. I mean, surprisingly, I've had people come to me and think like, oh, there's no way out of this contract, but the contract actually has ways that it could be terminated, voided, or etc. But it just depends on the specific situation. And that person that wrote that article on Reddit, there's a lot of unknowns there.
Right. So if you're using an agent, what's your best advice using an agent and building a home?
I would go with an agent that's had some experience with new homes, or just to go with an agent you trust. Someone that you could that's not going to quote ghost you. I think
that's the hardest part, is that her friend referred this agent, and then she had told me that her friend also built in this neighborhood. So I'm wondering, like, did the agent do this to your friend too, or like I can't understand what happened. That like I don't know.
That person's going to want to maybe sell that home, so what, that agent's not doing themselves any favors for.
Right. It's funny. It always just reminds me, I tell people, like, I don't care if it's like Jesus telling you to use this real estate agent. Like, you need to vet these people and like interview them and like trust your gut on this, right? Like, you can't just assume that someone's giving you a referral because they're awesome, because it could be because it's their mom. It could be because they heard something about them. It's not always necessarily, I use this person and I love them. So I think a referral always has to be vetted, right? Like, I don't think you can just take a name and run with it. Like, you should really be doing the work to figure out if they're good at their job.
Yeah. I don't know. I heard yesterday it was something like, if God gives you a resume, check the references.
Right.
I don't know. I thought it was funny, but yeah.
Always check. Well, thank you for this. Stay tuned for part 2 as we talk with a mortgage broker about what happened to this buyer's loan. How did it go up 15%? Who messed up? And can a lender buy your rate down with points without specifically telling you?
Want to share your experience with us? Drop by therealestatereplay.com and submit your story, or even ask us a question.